Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, I am very happy. We have a special guest joining us today because they are still a full-time senior software engineer and developer advocate at Yum Brands. But our guest is also like many of us and started a part-time coaching business focused on helping junior developers get their first job in tech. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and non-binary folk on this spectrum, please welcome our guest, Erik Andersen. Erik, thank you so much for being here.
Wow, great introduction. Thank you so much. Hopefully I can live up to the hype, but thanks for having me on your podcast.
You're very welcome. I was excited when we met over on Polywork, which is an amazing place for connections, how you're starting your journey. And I'm just like me, I'm only like a few months probably ahead of you. This is going to be my third year entrepreneuring. But I love how you're still in that journey with me and with my audience as well. So you're a perfect person because you can show the success. Like, I want to know, before I ask any questions, like, first of all, thank you. You're on the show. Great. Now, please, after I've done that introduction, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. So as you said, senior software engineer, developer advocate full-time at Yum Brands. Part-time about 2 years ago, I decided to take some of my experience to help start a coaching business on the side to help junior developers get that first job. I call myself an accidentalpreneur in the sense that initially my sole desire was just to share the love and help developers just like I was that are just maybe a few years behind me in that progression. And then over the course of a few years, it's kind of blossomed. People demanding more of my time, wanting more and more of the content I was putting out. So was never intentional, but happy to be here and share what that accidentalpreneur journey might look like.
So why did you get into software engineer in the first place? Like, what was it about being software engineer or that called to you?
Yeah, so growing up, my dad was a programmer. So when I was in middle school, we built our first computer together. In high school, I built my first website. It was a Dragon Ball Z fan site that was like a click and drag, kind of a no-code thing. Then it was little macros and automations for StarCraft, if you ever played those games. Yeah. So it was always in the back of my mind. So when I hit college and had to choose a major, sure, why not dive into something where I can kind of explore this further?
I love it. And then transition. How long were you a software engineer before you said, "Hey, I'm going to help people"?
Yeah, so that was about 8. Well, it was 8 years in my journey when I branded myself the world's happiest software engineer, and I did that because it was a goal of mine. Actually, I was at the time probably the world's unhappiest software engineer. But I believe in public accountability for any goal that you have, right? Exercise, weight loss, what have you. So I wanted to have that public manifestation and accountability of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be. So that's why I say accidentalpreneur. I set that title, and then within a few months, like, everybody started asking me questions about it. LinkedIn primarily is where my audience is. And how do I be a happier developer? And then over the course of just a few months in the last few years, yeah, I've done this one-on-one coaching because people keep asking me this question, but that was never my intent, right? My intent was my own mental health and well-being first.
I love that. And so after the 8 years, you slam down, I'm going to become the happiest software engineer in the world. And months later comes true, or it starts coming true, becomes more of a reality. Then you start getting people going, "Hey, I want to be happy too. I'm not happy as a software engineer. Can you help me?" And so they start asking you, did you start charging at first, or were you just doing it pro bono?
Pro bono initially, because like I said, the intent was never to start a business. So initially, it was one-on-one conversations on LinkedIn, primarily through chat. Then it blossomed into, I'd open up time on my calendar for voice calls, video calls. Then I'd have some repeated conversations, formal mentorship over the course of a few months until somebody found a job. But then it hit a point where I didn't have enough time in the day to really put energy into helping everybody that was coming my way. So at that point, it was, well, I need to have like a Calendly subscription so I can help manage my time. Okay, well, now I'm accruing costs here for a service I'm giving for free. So I need to offset that somehow. So then it became, well, I can do a blog here that is, ad monetized. That becomes popular. And now I'm having to pay for like market research that people are asking deep questions about the job market on. So, okay, well, I need to have like a premium tier here for that. And then, so I'm pushing everybody to this, generic advice on my newsletter. But then there's still demand on my time. Okay, well, let me start charging for these one-on-one mentorship conversations to kind of maybe limit that demand to a reasonable amount. And that's where I am right now, and trying to kind of understand what the next step looks like for me. And then full disclosure as well, kind of talk about the financial aspect of it.
Sure. Yes. No, please. This is an open whatever you
Yeah.
want to talk about, we could talk about.
So the first 2 years of that journey, I'm maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years in, depending how you define starting this journey. First years, I didn't really make any money at all, but my following on social media grew exponentially to the point where I'm at now. So then in the last few months, through a combination of the mentoring and the blog, and I partner with some recruiting companies and boot camps. Finally, now a bad month, it's usually a few $100s, and on a good month, it's close to about $1,000. So I just
great.
want. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say that's great. You can continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned a large part of your audience are people that are early on in that entrepreneurship journey. If I maybe dedicated full-time energy to this, I could have monetized a lot earlier. But I would just say, if you're taking a path where you're still full-time employed somewhere else and part-time trying to do this, I would, following my similar journey, just be aware it's not going to make you a lot of money or early on. But I would instead focus early on getting lots of followers and building a presence, so that when you finally do start monetizing, you'll have a large audience that you can draw from.
I want to talk about you using LinkedIn to generate content. How did you go about doing it? Like, what kind of content did you put out on your LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's been another journey, right? Typical entrepreneurship journey where you fail a lot and you pivot and you kind of understand what the market wants. So initially, when I started posting, it was a lot of mental health type topics. Got some lukewarm reception. My audience wasn't that large to begin with either. So I pivoted and started talking more about deeply technical topics, coding tips and things like that. That also had a lukewarm response. Then I started giving general advice to seasoned developers for how to maybe go from a junior to a senior and get promoted. That also had a lukewarm response. I'm about on my 4th iteration of that. I started talking about job search tips, and the engagement on LinkedIn, the views that I have, the click through to my newsletter on any links that I shared was like night and day different from anything else that I was talking about at the time. So while initially a lot of this was focused on the happy developer, mental health in the software engineering field, I've since now pivoted, as the market seems to be mostly interested in in finding a job, especially lately with all the big tech layoffs that have been announced by Facebook, Google, Microsoft, etc. It just seems to be a lot more relevant to my audience lately.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I can see the increase. So it's probably, you can probably track it, that the bigger the layoffs, the more people are clicking in to find out how to get jobs, because either they've been out of the market for so long or they're just about to enter the market, and they're
Yeah.
getting these abysmal news about Twitter laying off, Facebook, everywhere being layoffs
Hmm.
left, right, and center. With that, your style of writing on LinkedIn, how would you describe it?
That's a good question. As far as my style, I like to think that I speak direct. What I mean by that is you'll notice each of my posts start off identifying the audience that I'm speaking to. So I'll say recruiters dash blah blah blah, juniors dash blah blah blah. Another post will say companies hiring managers dash blah blah blah. I personally find it difficult to, when I'm scrolling through an endless feed on whatever social media platform I'm on, I want to engage with the content that's relevant to me,
Mhm.
and whatever their algorithm is promoting, blah blah blah. I don't want to engage with that. I want to engage with the content that's relative to me. So anyway, I try to assist the algorithm or assist my audience at least by being explicit, saying, "Hey, if you're a junior, this is a post you want to read." That's the very first line. And then the content that I provide, I like to be very direct and explicit with tactical tips. I find a lot of other voices in that job search, career development space are a lot more touchy feely. Like, just believe in yourself and you can do it. Keep trying harder and you'll eventually get it. Being an engineer, though, I like to think I'm a little more pragmatic. Like, what does that look like? What do I need to do? Tell me the steps. So I try to be more direct.
I like that. I like the directions. I think it helps a lot more because you're talking to the audience that you're talking to. Like, most engineers are pragmatic. That's why they went into it. A plus B equals C. Like, I don't need to know that if I have a feeling that it's going to make me go right. No, tell me the steps I need so I can get the job, and then I'll feels later.
Now I'll feel
Um,
good later. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right. That's
it's
right.
the feelings come later. Get me the job first. What are the steps? I know I need to believe in myself, but what other steps are needed?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
your newsletter. What prompted you to start that? Like, was that something you already had set up, or was it like, oh, I need to start a newsletter?
Yeah, that was I. I knew that Medium had a partner program where you could monetize your blog, what have you. Initially, the goal was not a blog. The goal was a book, and I figured, what is the next step at writing a book? And I'm not a writer. Uh, so I figured getting more comfortable writing short to medium form content was probably the first step there. One, to assess if there was a market interest in long form content on this topic. Second, to gain experience and confidence in myself. And third, I found that the more I write, the more I have to write about. So content generation was another aspect of it. So now, as I contemplate, and I haven't actually started writing the book yet, but now at least I feel a lot more confident in my ability to be successful to take that step. And if I were to write a book, I think it'd be relatively easy. I have now 3 years worth of my own content that I can look back on and just organize and structure, which
Yeah.
would be a lot easier than just starting from scratch, right?
For sure. And plus, you have at least 10,000 hours of writing
Oh
in
yeah.
those 3 years. So, like, you're already a master writer. You're in the top 10% for sure for writers, especially in your niche. You're probably in the top 1%
Oh
on
goodness,
that.
I haven't thought of it that way. Thank you.
Yeah, if you look at it, how many people are writing about helping software engineers find their next job? There's probably a handful,
Handful. Yeah.
if that, and we're also, and then we just look at people helping getting jobs in general. there's probably maybe 2 dozen, three
Mhm.
dozen people doing that. And then we have you who just comes in, your niche specific. Oh, you're gonna crush. Your book's gonna crush.
Crush it. Oh gosh, thank you for the confidence.
Oh,
Yes, thank you.
listen. It's if you're already getting clients now with what you're doing, there's a market for it. Now
Mhm.
you just need to find out what's the price point of this market, and
Sure.
that you're going to do that now as you move through and you write your book and all that. You'll see even more. And by the way, that book is a genius idea for leads. It's a
Okay.
genius
Thank you. Yeah.
lead generating because I just read a book called The Million Book Funnel, and it talks about how just using your book creates leads because it's as you promote your book, people read it, they know more about you, and you place your little links inside that book.
Mhm.
Schedule a call, or book a
It adds
session.
it adds a little formality too. I imagine, with boot camps, universities, companies, right? A
Yeah,
best-selling author. Oh, you come in. Yeah.
there you go. It just gives you an authority because we also know that a book is you're putting down your knowledge in a book, so you must be relevant and you must
Mhm.
have some knowledge in it to have written a book. What's your goal with the coaching business?
Yeah. So I am, as an accidentalpreneur, am really living this journey maybe 6 months at a time.
Okay.
Uh, 5 years, 10 years down the road, ultimately, personally, I would like to have some financial independence. Um, and then ultimately, since my initial motivation for all of this was to help junior developers, I am now at the point where I've helped a few hundred find that first job. But to say that I've helped 1,000, that I've helped 10,000, I mean, the higher that number gets, the happier I am, right? As showing that my content has been relevant to my audience. That's where I'd say I am right now.
I love that. Okay, I want to look at some more tip-oriented things. Since you're starting your journey, I want to talk to software engineers. Okay, software engineers who
Mhm.
are looking to transition from working for a brand or working for a company and then starting their own either coaching agency or something in that world. What tip would you have for them for starting off?
Yeah, I would say, based off of my experience, I've heard the phrase, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. I've also heard it said that the best time to start marketing your book is 2 years before you even write it. The idea being that so much of what we do as entrepreneurs requires a certain amount of awareness in the market of your services or your skill set, etc. Um, so even if you don't know exactly what you want to do, like me, I would say being active and professional on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, both have been very successful funnels for me. I'm just now getting into video content with TikToks or YouTube. But just start developing your own personal brand and just recognize that on my journey, every time I've tried to extract value from my audience by asking them to purchase something or referring them to a program, every time I've done that, my followership, my engagement has dropped.
Hmm.
So I know very early on, I tried to monetize by directing my audience to a boot camp I had a partnership with, where I had some sort of affiliate agreement to. Uh, I did that, I think, a little too early. I had an upswing in my following that stagnated and dropped once I started trying to sell something.
Mhm.
And then I pivoted back to just producing free content and my advice and my newsletter, and then it started skyrocketing again. So I would say, at least initially, I'm kind of talking in circles here.
It's all
Focus
right.
on that following and just recognize that it might take you a while to have a significant size of enough audience that you can extract value from it without damaging your growth trajectory.
I love that. That's some great advice, and it's true. You need to know when to monetize. Have that option to monetize as early
Mhm.
as possible, but don't look for it to be the start selling right away until you have a larger audience that understands the
Yeah.
value that you give. I think that's a great piece of advice, Eric. I want to know, in the 2 years that you're two and a bit years that you've been doing this, has there been a moment or memory that you've had, either of something you've been able to accomplish or something that you've been able to help a client accomplish, that you like to share with us today?
Yeah, so I was relatively early on, mostly doing one-on-one coaching. I had some small speaking engagements. Uh, then I had a company approach me asking if I would come and have some workshop with their organization. And sure, I pitched them what I usually pitched it for an engagement like that. And their response was, "What an incredible deal." I thought I was overcharging, right? I
Yeah.
was still a little struggling with some of my self-confidence and
Mhm.
what I was trying to do. There were some naysayers on social media. You'll bump into those no matter what you do. But for me to throw out, a few $1,000s, this is what it's going to cost, and for them to say, "What a deal!" Not just yes, but like, "Oh my gosh," implying they would have paid much more, right?
Oh,
And like, wow, maybe it was such a confidence boost. Like, oh my gosh, there is a demand for this. Yes, what I am doing is valuable, perhaps more valuable than I even realize. And just that it was like an email exchange back and
mhm.
forth. Just that walking away from that email exchange just made me question so many things. Because before that, so much of my sales had been to an individual,
Mhm.
and me as an individual, consumer sales, very price sensitive, right? There's a big difference between $20 and $50.
Yeah.
And so those are the numbers that I'm, typically thinking of personally and that I'm offering for one-on-one consultations. But thousands of dollars for a company, that's like pennies,
Yeah.
right? In some instances. So just recognizing that scale and that opportunity, that if I can partner with more boot camps, educational institutions, recruiting firms, just what options are available to me now. Oh, that's game changer.
I love that. I love that mindset, and realizing when you're dealing with a company, if you go business to business, that you can start charging more, and businesses will be like, okay, that's fine. Whereas with individuals, you have to understand where they are in the hierarchy of the economic ladder. Um,
Yeah, like for example, my newsletter, whether it's $2 or $5, $15, I have different pricing tiers depending on what you want. Yeah, I'm competing with Netflix, right?
mhm,
Sure, I'm not providing entertainment in that form, but from a budget perspective, like it's discretionary income of an individual's household that I'm competing with. For a company, though, I'm competing with their other investments. Or if I'm doing a job search and it's an educational institution like a boot camp who's they share the same goal, like they get paid more money if students get higher paying jobs, like my incentives are now in line with
theirs.
their financial outcome, then yeah, the opportunity is so much greater.
I like that. What? ah, Lost the question. Damn it!
You're good. Yeah,
I hate
it
when that
happens.
happens.
You're
Um,
getting older, my friend. Yes.
oh yeah, I do have the gray hairs, and it's annoying when I start finding them. I'm like, oh god, no more. But we're gonna jump to the spark question of the show, since I lost the question, and if it comes back to me, I'll ask you it. But as most of my audience knows, Spark is from the guys over at Seek Discomfort. I highly suggest you find it. It is to spark conversations with strangers who are just friends you haven't met yet. So I would like to know, who is someone you look up to but you've never met?
Somebody I look up to who I've never met. Can I cheat a little bit and say
Sure.
somebody that I've met once?
Sure. We'll allow it. How
Yeah.
long was the meeting?
We had dinner together at a conference.
I'll allow it.
You allow it? Okay. All right.
I'll allow it.
James Q. Quick, also a software engineer, just recently went full-time on his content creation journey.
Oh,
So I followed him for a while. We were able to meet in person at a conference, and he's living the dream, a variation of my dream, not 100%. Our content does 100% overlap, but the idea of being able to break out of the mold of the 9 to 5, to be able to embrace a future that's entirely controlled by my vision, seems extremely exciting to me. So I've met him once, but I would still say I'd love to grab coffee with him again and hang out more if I could.
I bet you if you send him an email, he'll say yes.
Yeah.
What I'm
He's a
going to
great
do,
guy.
I don't doubt it. He seems like a great guy. Anybody who jumps into the entrepreneurial world so far I've met have been awesome because their main goal is to help people. So that's inspiring. Erik, I'm going to jump off the screen here. I'm going to give the floor to you. Please let my audience know where they can find you, where they can follow you, so that they can learn if they are a software engineer, how they can become the happiest software engineer, or how to land their first job. And I'm pretty sure your tips and tricks will work for anybody. But the floor, sir, is yours.
Very good. Yes. So you can find me on thehappydeveloper.bio.link. That has a link to all of the services that I provide, one-on-one mentoring, coaching, some resources and tools that I partner with to help you in your job search. Also has links for boot camps, colleges that I mentioned earlier if you need help improving your placement rate to help your students find their first job. If you want to connect with me, I am most active on LinkedIn, so message me there at linkedin.com/in/EB Andersen. That is SEN. That always trips people up. But hope to connect with you there if you are a software engineer looking for that first job.
Awesome. Erik, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. Oop, there is some construction going on, so if there's some loud banging, I apologize to my audience. I'm going to try and get that.
The joys of working from home.
Yeah. Erik, yes, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been great talking with you, learning about your journey so far in entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for having me, Phil. Look forward to talking to you later.
Excellent. To my audience, as you know, as always, the show notes will have the links to Erik's website as well as his LinkedIn. So make sure you go check him out. And always remember to invest in yourself.